New criticism is today no longer new criticism. It is old criticism. In fact, very old criticism, and it has now been overthrown completely by feminism, by deconstruction, by new historicism, by so many other schools. But there was a time when new criticism was indeed new criticism, and that was in the 1940s. In 1941, John Crow Ransom published his book, The New Criticism, and the name stuck. New criticism drew inspiration from the work of the Cambridge scholar Aristotle, in particular from his book Practical Criticism. New criticism was influenced very much by T.S. Eliot's concept of the objective correlative, and also by his stance that poetry should be impersonal. The heyday of new criticism was from the 1940s to the 1970s, and the important practitioners of new criticism, besides John Crow Ransom, were Alan Tate, Robert Penn Warren, and Cleanth Brooks. Perhaps the best way to begin an overview of new criticism and the processes, the actual critical processes of new criticism, is to list what was excluded by new criticism. And new criticism excluded quite a lot of things. It excluded reader response, though strictly speaking, new criticism is also reader response. It excluded the author's intention, or what it called the intentional fallacy was something to be avoided. It excluded historical background. It excluded cultural context. It excluded moralistic bias. It excluded ideological slants. New criticism felt that all these things were quite irrelevant. Similarly, new criticism refused to differentiate clearly and categorically between structure and meaning. New criticism felt that there is some kind of inner cohesion between structure and meaning, and avoided analyzing structure separately and meaning separately, and always attempted to analyze, evaluate, and interpret them together. Though new criticism was quite applicable to prose and to drama as well, new criticism found its special bailiwick in poetry. The new critic generally focused critical attention on the poem as a whole and emphasized such features as the rhyme scheme, the metrical pattern, the stanzaic arrangement, and the use of figures of speech, especially such figures of speech as paradox, ambiguity, irony, tension, and imagery. The basic methodology used is what the French call explication de texte or close reading, where the reader bestows tremendous attention, meticulous focus on the passage under scrutiny. In fact, tremendous Careful attention is bestowed on every word almost, every punctuation mark almost, on the syntax, on the way in which the lines unfold the ideas. The critical attention that is given is highly focused, sustained, and aims at bringing out the possible interpretations of the passage under investigation. Genre differences do not matter much to the new critic, and the new critic adopts the same attitude, the same methodology to deal with prose and drama as with poetry. The words on the page are the only things which matter to the new critic. Other things do not matter to the new critic. The new critic sees the poem or any other literary work which is subjected to criticism as an object to be placed under the microscope, to be analyzed, to be evaluated, to be interpreted. New criticism is premised on the presupposition that every work of literature, every poem enjoys an intrinsic homogeneity. The task of the new critic is to carry out an analysis, an evaluation, and interpretation of the poem and bring out this intrinsic homogeneity. If there are contradictions within the text, as there almost always are, new criticism generally glosses over them or tries to explain them away. Similarly, class, gender, ideology, such things do not seem to have existed for the new critic. The new critic applied his mind and came up with an interpretation solidly based on his usually remarkable skills of analysis and evaluation. The fact that his class, his gender, his sexual orientation, his economic status, his ethnicity, his ideology, his personal bias, his individual experiences could possibly have influenced his close reading, his analysis, his evaluation seems to have been lost upon him. Though completely overthrown by other schools, new criticism remains relevant even today because that is what every schoolboy does. That is what every student does, every college student does when he is asked to analyze, evaluate, and bring out the meaning of a literary passage, especially a poem.